Yo, what is going on, everybody? Boruto Chapter 43 is done and in the books. Yo, I knew about the Jougan coming back because of the spoilers that came out yesterday, but oh my god, to actually see it in action and to see it in combination with the Karma Seal, we've been waiting so long to see this, man. We've been waiting so long to see it, and I gotta admit, this is not going to disappoint. This is not disappointing. I'm totally loving everything that we got in this chapter, right? Like, it makes the previous 3 chapters dealing with Boro versus Team 7 and that whole setup, it makes all of that completely worth it because now we have a true payoff. And what I love about this moment here, when Boruto activates his Jougan and he's in that Otsutsuki form and he's using Momoshiki's abilities, is it just goes to show something that I've been saying for a long time. Boruto's going to have Momoshiki's abilities. We clearly see it when Momoshiki takes over. The other thing is I got a lot of people telling me I was talking out of my ass when I made that Karma Seal explain video, and I said that there are strong implications that the Otsutsuki that is inside of the vessel is going to eventually be able to take over if the circumstances allow it, similar to the way that we saw with the Jinchuriki. We saw the same thing taking place here. Out of survival, Momoshiki takes over Boruto's body because Boruto was clearly about to get basically wiped off the map because of Boro. So with all that out the way, now that I finally sipped my tea, let's just back up for a second and let's talk about this chapter review. So I gotta say, man, I definitely gotta say that I love how the chapter just picks up right where the last one left off, where in the last chapter Sarada uses the shidori, and I like how one of the things that they're doing is when Sarada uses it, Kawaki is playing the role of a lot of the newer fans that we have that are getting into the Boruto series. A lot of people know that this shidori is Sasuke's signature jutsu, but a lot of people don't realize that it's a jutsu that you can only safely perform using the Sharingan. And so I like how Mitsuki just immediately breaks that down and says it's only feasible if you have the Sharingan to be able to do it, and he breaks down the fact that it's a high-speed thrust and that it's a jutsu that's used for assassination. I like the fact that information is getting kind of brought back and just refreshed for, again, for a lot of the newer fans that we have. And what's so crazy about this, right, is when you get that moment where Sarada is using it, right, like it almost comes off to me at first that Sarada wasn't able to break the scientific ninja tool heart that Boro had. Like, you see the cracks in it forming, but I'm like, okay, is Sarada not gonna be able to do it? And so what I love about this moment right here is the fact that after Boruto goes into his complete fanboy moment saying, when did she master Sasuke's jutsu? When did she learn Sensei's jutsu? You see Sarada actually break it. And so the one thing I will say is that while that was a really good sequence of panels, I would have liked to have seen a little more. So if you guys follow me on Twitter, you know that I tweeted out a 5-panel page that Masashi Kishimoto did, where I just showed you the difference in how Kishimoto does his panels and how Ikimoto does them. And I said that I really feel like the extra detail will go a long way in adding more payoff to some of these scenes. And when Sarada breaks the heart of Boro, when she finally shatters it, it'd have been really nice to actually see just a little more detail. So you see the one panel on the previous page where Sarada has her hand on it and the shidori is just wrapped around it, and you see the cracks forming. I feel like taking a little extra time and showing just the close-up how he did, where you see the cracks, where instead of seeing them as they form after the fact, show them as they're forming in real time. Show one panel where you see the crack forming, then another panel where Sarada is exerting a little more effort, maybe show the hands just gripping a little tighter and the cracks getting bigger. And then as you slowly progress, now after you use maybe about 3 panels on that, you use another panel where you see Sarada now beginning the process of crushing it and then crushing the scientific ninja tool heart. Now a lot of you guys might say, why is that so important? Because when you look at expressive art styles and you look at the way that Kishimoto did a lot of the detail, and why the animators say that it's so much easier to adapt the work that Kishimoto does for Boruto, like with the Naruto Gaiden special chapter and the Mitsuki special chapter, the reason why it's a lot easier is because Kishimoto's more detailed, whereas Ikimoto basically gives you snapshots of it. So I feel like that was a missed opportunity opportunity there, and he's got a few other moments in this chapter where a little extra detail could have paid things off. But one thing that he does capture very well is just capturing the feeling of hype, and I feel like one of the things that really carries this chapter very well is just the hype element of it. So what I will say is another thing is I feel like when Boro goes to the process of snapping, again, just having a little more attention to detail could have made this scene convey a lot better. Again, I'm not bashing it, but you guys know how my reviews go. I talk about the stuff that worked well, and I also talk about the stuff that could have been improved and give you guys suggestions on how it was improving. So the best way I can kind of describe this is when you look at Boro, right? Like he is shown looking over his shoulder at his side, and then you see him immediately jump to a conclusion, you stupid little girl, and it's all in the same panel, and you see half of his face. Like, it'd have been a better payoff if you had seen the eyes and the face transition from that moment of being stunned to realizing what happened to just seeing the anger form on his face, and then you see him say, "You stupid little girl," maybe sprinkle that dialogue out as Boro realizes what happened to him, and then you see him snap, and then he says, "How dare you?" Again, just having those extra moments build up to the expressive panel that you got where you have Boro shouting and it's you. That's a very well drawn panel. It's very well drawn, it's very expressive, but there's not enough build up to that moment there. Like I totally understand what he was going for on that, but I don't think it was the best executed. Now when it comes to Boro's transformation, that's another thing. Again, just a little bit more detail would have really sold that over some, but I gotta admit, man, I really gotta admit, I like the fact that when Boro transforms, all of a sudden he's knocking all these boulders and everything around, and Kawaki says like, "Look, this dude's going on a rampage." That's cool because the dude, basically the scientific ninja tool, is running wild after he's now lost his core, aka he's now lost his heart, and he says he's not going to be able to fight efficiently. And Kawaki says, "But don't get it twisted, he's still dangerous. It's best to keep our distance. We're almost out of chakra right now. We're very worn down. The best thing we can do is try and rescue Naruto." And what I like about this is the fact that, you know, even Mitsuki says like, "Hey, if things get worse, we can just have Naruto defeat him." And at first, I'm not gonna lie to you, I was getting really pissed off when I was reading that because I felt like for attention's sake, it'd made more sense to have Naruto sealed away for a prolonged period of time. That way, there's a real sense of danger there. And I'll probably end up talking about that in a future video in more detail. Kind of brushed on it in the past a little bit, but now that Naruto's been unsealed, I think now's the time that we need to have a serious conversation about whether or not this was the best idea. But what I will say is that I like the fact that Kawaki is once again taking the lead when it comes to using the karma. Like, Boruto's constantly having to react to Kawaki when it comes to karma. So what we're seeing in this instance is the fact that Kawaki is serving as a rival, but it's not in the fashion of what you got with Naruto and Sasuke, where they're kind of in this pissing contest, and slowly over time they develop a bond. With Boruto, they did have a little pissing contest. Naruto couldn't even take a dump in one of the chapters and had to break these two up from fighting. That's absolutely true, but Boruto was more accepting of Kawaki from the very beginning than Naruto really was of Sasuke. Boruto doesn't necessarily feel the need to prove himself to Kawaki in the same way that Naruto did with Sasuke. So I like the fact that we're seeing the rivalry element, but it's done in a different way. That's very refreshing because it's one of those things when it comes to shonen that really, it gets watered down in my opinion. It's done too much. Like what Boruto and Kawaki's doing, more of what you got with Saito and Kenshin, where they didn't necessarily have to try and prove anything to one another, but it was very clear that they were rivals, but they also had a working understanding of their relationship, and you saw it change over time as they were going towards Kyoto to take down Shishio. So I like that you're seeing a little bit there. And what I also like is the fact that, you know, when Kawaki starts showing off how to use the karma seal and says, "Well, we've already opened up a space-time barrier before. Well, how about you help me and maybe we'll be able to rescue Naruto?" And sure enough, you see the hand of Naruto start to fall out one of those portals. You see the shocked expressions of Team 7 as it happens, and Naruto comes out and he doesn't have the chakra rods in him, and Naruto is essentially unconscious. I'm okay with that because in that moment it added a sense of danger there to where you didn't know whether or not Naruto was gonna be awake, and the other thing is you didn't know whether or not he would recover in enough time to potentially help them if Boro gets out of control. So, and what I like about that moment right here is that you see Boruto cradling Naruto. I thought that was a nice touch. Again, I feel like that was another missed opportunity. Instead of having those panels that were strictly devoted on the top of the page to the different faces faces of Team 7. That's a very nice touch. But this is where Ikimoto, again, the guy was an assistant of Masashi Kishimoto, so he knows the importance of panel usage and he knows how to basically maximize the space. It's one of those things where I really feel like Ikimoto is more influenced by Akira Toriyama than I'm giving him credit for, because one of the things Toriyama would do was wait till the last minute to draw the chapters, and you would see Toriyama kind of slack off with some of those panels as well. I felt like it could have been better done if you would have saw Boruto just cup Naruto's head and begin to raise him up, and you get that shot where Boruto's saying Naruto's unconscious. Like, I would have liked to have seen something there. Now, as you guys all know, as you guys are all waiting for, Boruto gets his body taken over by Momoshiki. I know that's what a lot of you guys came here for, so we're gonna go ahead and get into that part of the chapter. So what I gotta say though, is that the best way to show this is how Ikimoto handled it, right? So what you end up seeing is Boro goes on his rampage and he immediately just takes down Mitsuki. Mitsuki is essentially the Yamcha of this chapter. He served as a jobber. That way we know, okay, hey, Boro, we already knew he was strong, but this new form is really strong. And the other members of Team 7, so Sarada and Kawaki, they quickly follow suit. Like, Sarada tries to use her fire style jutsu, and you see Boro just grab Sarada, he picks her up and starts cracking her bones. Kawaki tries to get in on the attack. He fires off a massive chakra blast, and it basically eviscerates part of Boro's arm, but Boro still has another arm, and he knocks Kawaki clean across the side of the area, right? So Kawaki's going smashing all through these different mountain tops that you see, and what's so crazy is the fact that Boruto tries to fight back. He tries to rescue Sarada, and what you end up seeing in that moment is the fact that Boruto gets knocked around as well. And you just see this build up where you see Boruto and you just see the shock on his face. And on the chapter page where you see Boruto and he's struggling to get up and he's looking and you see his head raised and he's looking over at Sarada, I thought that that was really nice. Again, when Ikimoto does decide to use the extra panels, it really pays off. I think that 3 to 6 panel range is really his comfort zone. I feel like now's the time that he needs to be pushed a little bit. The Boruto manga has been going on for a 4-year period. Now's the time where we should be seeing more growth in his panel management. We've seen it in his art style, but this was that moment that it really just adds that sense of helplessness. And you see how Boruto's Jougan and his karma transformation immediately get triggered in this moment, because everything, that sense of hopelessness adds up. And it's in that moment that you see Boruto and he's levitating just in the same way that Momoshiki does. And at the time you see the horn, but you're not absolutely sure, but then you get this really nice shot of the chakra just swirling around Boruto. You see how the karma has spread all the way up. You see how the horn has begun to shoot out, and you see a very close-up shot of his Jougan. Now, I have to address this here because I've got a lot of people saying this isn't Jougan. No, this is the Jougan or the pure eye, whatever you guys want to call it, okay? Now, the reason why I'm saying that is this is the exact same design that you got in Boruto Chapter 1. Now, a lot of people are getting confused because the anime, every time Boruto uses Jougan in the anime, his eye is basically black in the back. I forgot what part of the eye that is, but I believe that's the sclera, but the eye in the anime is black, and then you have the pupil where everything in the pupil is basically white, and you see the outline of the pupil. Now, here's the thing. I always tell you guys that Studio Pierrot and other anime studios will take creative liberties with different things, and Boruto's Jougan being black is one of those things. Now, whether or not they try and explain this as being something as simple as Ikimoto just didn't have time to ink that in the manga, which I don't believe, whether or not they explain that as something as simple as when Boruto's using the Jougan earlier in the anime before all these events, it's one of those things where the Jougan was still forming and it wasn't fully mature. You can explain it away like that, but it's something where it really needs to make sense if they do that. It's something where you have to look at it like this. The anime is just taking creative liberty. A really great example from what another anime did is what Dragon Ball did with Vegeta. So in the Dragon Ball manga, Vegeta's hair was black, but when Toei Animation got a hold of Vegeta very early on, they made Vegeta's hair brown until they decided to correct it. And it's something like this. Studio Pierrot, the exact same thing, whether it comes to cutting elements of the story or changing elements of the canon to fit the filler content that they're making and tying filler into the main continuity of the story. It's one of those things where you have to kind of separate yourself from the anime in some aspects. So I like the reveal here. Boruto looks very savage in the way that he's looking down at Boro. And what's so crazy about this is the fact that the moment that Boruto starts speaking, he says, "Don't get too cocky, you inferior creature." The moment that happens, you see Boro immediately piss himself and he says, "Otsutsuki." And this is again one of those times where this is a very hyped chapter, very hyped. But once again, Ikimoto did not make the most of his panels here. We got 4 panels there, and it's one of those times where this page here, the moment that Boro realizes that Boruto's actually an Otsutsuki, that an Otsutsuki has taken over his body, that's that moment you should have saw the look on his face going from being angry to being shocked to being terrified to having the resolve to attempt to fight back. That's when you should have seen that. That's what I'm talking about. Like, I know it seems like I'm harping on this, but for such a monumental chapter like this was a good chapter, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot left on the table here. So I gotta say again, just when you see Boruto's raw strength being debuted, that's really nice to see. I like how Ikimoto shows a flash of brilliance here where you see the streaks of line in the background to show how fast Boruto's moving, how hard he's actually hitting Boro, and how fast Boruto's being knocked across the room. Like, I like what you see there. I really like that, and I like how you get this moment where Momoshiki, as he's taking over Boruto's body, looks at Boruto's karma and says he almost has no chakra left, and that's when he spots Naruto. Like, again, it would have been nice to actually see more build up before Momoshiki actually sees Naruto's body. Again, I like to compare Ikimoto's art style to essentially the Boruto manga is a snapshot of what the anime is going to give you. But with that being said, I did think it was cool how he just floated down to Naruto and he begins to absorb some of Naruto's chakra, and he flat out states that this should be sufficient. So it lets you know that he only took out enough chakra that was going to be needed to take down Boro. And so it confirms one of the things I've been saying, that okay, he's gonna obviously have Momoshiki's abilities. And I like how once he gets that chakra from Naruto, Boruto, it feels like the pages are drawn a little bit more dynamic. And you see this moment where Boruto's just slapping Boro around. He smacks him through the air, and then before he can begin to hit that peak of ascent, Boruto appears right behind him, and then he kicks him down into the ground, and you just see all the mountains and everything in the background shaking. You see the clouds and everything sprout up. Like, it'd have been really nice if we would have got a little bit more there. I thought that just having a little bit more detail as Boro hits the ground, or maybe as the ground shakes, I thought that that would have been a little nicer to see right there, but I'm not going to nitpick that part. But what I like in this moment is how Mitsuki senses Boruto's change, and he's absolutely stunned here. And again, more panels would have sold this a little bit more effective, but I like how you get this moment where Boruto, or aka Momoshiki, is looking. It's like, what did he call this jutsu that he used? Oh, that's right, he called it a rasengan. And you see Boruto immediately say Rasengan, and then all of a sudden you see this massive Rasengan that is bigger than Boro, bigger than the Rasengan that we saw Naruto use when Naruto took down Delta, and arguably a Rasengan that looks like it might be bigger than what was used in the Versus Momoshiki arc in the manga when they used to take down Momoshiki. Again, it might be bigger, but Boruto uses that Rasengan. And what I will say is that that moment right there, there's two things I'm gonna say about this. That moment right there, one, that should have been a double page spread. That deserved to be 2 pages right there. Like, moments like this deserve a 2-page spread. So I thought that that would have been nice. And the best way that could have been used to lead into that is you see when Momoshiki says, oh, it's the Rasengan, and you see the Rasengan being formed in the subsequent panels after the fact. And you see right away that it's being formed at a faster rate than what Boruto does. That lets you know that you're getting something special. That way it doesn't just hit you all at once, and it doesn't come off as jarring as what you get. And when it comes to finishing, it makes the finishing of Boro seem to be that much more epic. Payoff isn't always about the story, but instead payoff is also about the visual medium that you're getting when it comes to reading graphic novels and manga and comic books. Having stuff like that adds to the payoff. So I gotta say that was pretty impressive, and I like how you get this moment where Boruto's looking at the damage that's been done and everybody's like, what the hell just happened to this dude, right? And you see, all of a sudden you see that Boruto is beginning to essentially lose the presence of Momoshiki, and Ikimoto does it all in one panel where Momoshiki says, no, not yet, my dear blue-eyed boy, is still a ways away, that you'll lose everything. And you see Boruto go from one panel having the Otsutsuki horn, having the karma seal, having the Jougan, to all of a sudden Boruto's eyes have returned to normal. Like, I would have liked to have seen the transition take place. Again, it's just something that adds better payoff to the scene. A great example of one of the moments that you got in the Naruto series when that happened is that moment when Naruto realizes that Gaara is dead. You see the small changes in his eyes from where the pupils go from being regular size to getting smaller, and then you see the face change, and then you see the QB eyes take over in Naruto's face. Like, having stuff like that, those simple transitions add so much more to the moment. I thought that had been really nice to see that, and I did like the fact that Boruto doesn't remember anything, and Sarada says it herself in her internal monologue that it seemed like Boruto is somebody else, and she says this power that Boruto has might be more dangerous than we would have ever expected. So it's one of those things that now they're setting up to where there's a trade-off to Boruto using that power. And what I like is how Ikimoto, now I will give him this, Ikimoto absolutely nailed it on the ending. Okay, so the script that Kodachi gave to Ikimoto basically had it where it ended where you have Kashi and Koji saying he's gonna take down Jigen, and what you get is this one-page spread where you get only Kashi and Koji on one side and Jigen on the other, and it's basically them saying like, yeah, I'm gonna take him down. That's a perfect way to end it because it ends it on a cliffhanger, it ends it on a bit of suspense. But what I find interesting is the fact that it looks like Amato might actually be in league with Kashi and Koji, and what I like is the fact that now we're seeing Kashi and Koji, everything being paid off. Now it looks like we might be getting some answers as to who this guy is, what his relationship with Jigen is, and why he's beginning to try and betray the Gaara organization, because we know that Jigen is aware of the fact that Kashi and Koji is going to try it. And the other thing that we have to keep into account is, again, I don't power scale, but I will say this much. When you see Amato say that Jigen is recharging in the back and he hasn't regained 10% of his power, if you look at that, we saw that Kashi and Koji absolutely wrecked Konohamaru in Team 7. So the fact that this dude is looking, and if you see Jigen, and when Kashi and Koji and Jigen fight, if he's not at even 10% of his power, and Kashi and Koji just maybe gets mollywop, maybe gets raffle stomp, whatever term you want to use. If that happens, now we have a percentage of power to where we can start trying to scale what Ishiki Otsutsuki is able to do. Now, we gotta remember, Ishiki was not able to bring out his full power because Jigen's body was ineffective, but now we get an idea of how powerful this person is. So this is going to be really, really interesting because now we have some percentages to try and play around with. But in my chapter question to you guys is, how do you feel about the Jougan showing back up in the Boruto manga 4 years after it launched? We're almost 4 years. The Boruto manga, I believe, started in 2016. I believe the Boruto manga started around April or May of 2016. So we're almost at that 4-year anniversary. So let me know what you guys think about the timing of it, and what are your best thoughts about how Kashi and Koji is gonna do against Jigen. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. But as always, guys, if you like anything I had to say, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Have an awesome day, guys.